Okay, can everybody hear me? All right. I see some friendly faces out there. That helps. I'm a little bit nervous. It's been a couple of years with what's happening in the world since I've stood up in front of a group. Some things go through your mind when you're getting nervous about getting up. I'm standing over there, we're singing, and I'm thinking, I hope I have my mic off. Well, and I think I did, or it would have cleared the room. Another thing, I was reminded that I heard somewhere, I don't have the data, but a poll was taken. What are people fearful of? And the number one thing, according to this poll, that people are most fearful of was public speaking. Number two was death. Think about that. More afraid of public speaking than of death, which means at your funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy, I guess. So anyway, it's great to be here. Things have changed. The world has changed. And it's continuing to change. And that's why we need to kind of talk about what that means to us. What does that mean for our finances? Anybody notice the market's a little shaky these days? Can't get away from it, right? So that's the purpose of our discussion here this morning. But a couple things we want to think about as Christians. What factor in our lives does finances, money, our assets play? Is it important? We're all, and God's going to call us all home eventually. And they say you can't take it with you, so why bother? Well, there's a lot of biblical reasons that we know God is important. That money is important to God. In the Bible, baptism is mentioned 40 times. That's a lot. Prayer is mentioned 275 times. That makes sense. Love is mentioned 650 times. Love your neighbor, love God. That makes sense. Money and things to do with money, our assets and so forth, our property, is mentioned 2,350 times. And think about it. The parable of the stewards, right? The storehouse, the rich landowner storing his grain. There's countless stories about our money, our wealth, our assets in the Bible. So let me first tell you a little bit about asset planning ministries. Kelly mentioned it, and I appreciate that. Asset Planning Ministries is a nonprofit Christian organization. We are organized as a 501c3. That's a charitable organization. We never, ever accept love offerings, donations, gifts. The founder, stressed upon us, and Kelly mentioned it, he said, you don't even let anybody buy you a cup of coffee. I am going to have a piece of free pizza, though. But we want a solid line, a wall between, your money, your assets. We don't touch any of that. We don't accept any of that. We want to be above reproach for any, motivations, ulterior motives, things like that. We don't sell a thing. No books, no tapes, workshops, workbooks, products, certainly. Nothing like that. It's the way that we can give back. We're a small group. There's only 5 of us now. There's 2 here in the Bay. Well, 1 now in the Bay Area was me. I now have moved out of the area. And then our founder and a couple of others are in Texas. Let me tell you a little bit about the background of Asset Planning Ministry. Our founder is a gentleman named Wayne Rogers. Some of you have been here for a number of years. Remember Wayne? He was a president of a venture capital bank in Silicon Valley. Back in the heyday, some of the money behind Dell computers, Compaq computers, some of those names you might have heard of. A Christian man, went to a church down in Gilroy where he lived, and he felt God calling him to do something else. He wasn't sure. And he's a type A individual. You got to meet Wayne. He's like, when he shakes your hand, he, rips your arm off almost. He goes. So, in keeping with that personality, he thought, well, God wants me to do something else. I know. He wants me to be a missionary. So, boom, he goes launching off down that road, but all the doors closed. No, not going to be a missionary. He wants me to be a pastor of a local church. Boom, off he goes, gallivanting down that road. Doors closed. That didn't open. God, what do you want for me? Meantime, in his church, people were coming up to him because they knew him as the money guy, right? President of a venture capital bank dealing with billions of dollars. They'd come up, hey, I'm going to lose my home. This is like around in that 2008 financial crisis time, if you remember those days. What should I do? Or a recently widowed a woman would come up. My Johnny passed away, and he did all the finances. I don't know what to do. And so he started counseling just people that would ask him for help. And then that clicked in him. Christians and churches need good, unbiased, independent financial advice because it is a complicated world out there. But here's a little bit more about our philosophy. We use 3 scriptures to guide our ministry. In Proverbs 21:5, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Proverbs 16:9, in his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord will direct his steps. And Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. What's common in those 3? Plans, right? Plans. God plans. Some things not mentioned here. He had a plan for the ark, right? Whatever, 40 cubits by 20 cubics or whatever those things are. He had a plan for the temple, right? He gave Solomon plans for the temple. It's got to be measured out like this. God plans, and he wants us to plan too. Knowing how important our money and our assets are to God, over 2,000 times mentioned in scriptures, do you have a plan for your money? And that's what our ministry and our financial plan is all about. A little bit more on our philosophy. Hope is not a strategy. Right? I hope, this and that. Let me ask you a question. Don't raise your hands. This is an internal, okay? Answer this question. I am sure that I have enough in my assets or in my plan that I know I will have enough resources to last my lifetime. Okay? The answer is yes. I'm confident I am doing the right things, or I already have enough to last my lifetime and through retirement. Or no, I know I don't have enough for whatever reasons. The third answer is I don't know. I've never thought about it. Or it's been a long time since I thought about it, so I don't know. I would submit that obviously the answer yes is good. Bless your heart. I would also submit that the answer no is good, because then you know where you stand and can then begin to take some steps. The worst answer is I don't know. If that's what you answered in your heart, gosh, I've never thought about it. I'm busy, I've got kids, I've got a job, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I haven't had time, or I've just never taken the time to sit down and think about my future, or our future if you're married. That's what we need to address, and that's what I'm here for, to help you in all 3 answers. If your answer was yes, maybe we can fine-tune that together. Maybe there's some ways to maximize that. Maybe you're confident in your future, but you're thinking about, what am I going to leave behind? Russ, I think I'm going to leave some assets behind. How's the best way to take care of my grandchildren, the church, this other ministry, the local animal control shelter, whatever is on your heart? Maybe you have a legacy that you want to leave behind. If your answer was no, then let's talk about that. And if your answer is I don't know, then we need to get you to where you do know and can start taking some steps. Whatever your situation is right now, today, you didn't get into this situation overnight. I don't care if you're 20 years old and in your first job, or even still in college, or you're retired. You didn't get into this situation overnight. No financial plan is going to get you out overnight, but you need to have the plan to start taking those steps, right? Didn't get into it overnight, not going to get out of it overnight, but you can begin immediately to take some steps. Which brings me to the next point of there's no hurry, okay? Don't rush anything. Don't let anybody ever rush you into anything financial. If it's a good idea today, it'll be a good idea tomorrow, right? You hear the commercials on TV, or who watches live TV anymore? I don't know. But if you do, buy gold, right? Or you're inundated, with a Bitcoin, a cryptocurrency, things like that. If it's a good idea today, it'll be a good idea tomorrow, meaning a financial plan for your future is a long-term thing. So again, why are we here? Finances are an issue whether you're rich or poor. Everybody's got a financial situation. Doesn't matter what your situation is. It can be complicated, like I touched on. There's all this stuff, like a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, a SEP or simple IRA, 401ks, 403bs, deferred compensation plans, insurance. Oh my gosh, Russ, all these terms that insurance people throw at me. It can be complicated. It's hard to do yourself because of the system, right? The financial system, in a cynical view, this, don't want to color your impressions, but I think the financial system overall, banks, insurance companies, Wall Street, almost make it complicated so that you are a little befuddled, little baffled, and have to use them, have to rely on them, and they don't want to make it clear sometimes. Maybe that's a little too cynical, but it is a very, very confusing and complicated worry. We're here because we want to stop the insanity and any worries and fears. You sleep better at night if you know you have a plan and you're on track. And maybe most importantly is to align your financial goals with your spiritual goals and values. Whether or not you've even thought about them, you have spiritual values and goals. You might not know what they are yet. We've got to help you think about what is it that is my goal in life. And everybody is different. Everybody's different. That's why there's no one size fits all, no canned financial plan. Jump in there. If some of you out here, I'm saying, have worked with me in the past. We talked about your situation. I don't come in and say, oh, how old are you? Are you married? You got any kids? Okay, boom, boom, boom. This is what you have to do. No, everybody's plan is individual because your spiritual goals and plans are individuals. I can tell you probably what's important to you, what your goals are now. Maybe you don't realize what your goals are, but show me your calendar where you spend your time. Show me your credit card statement or your bank statement. Where do you spend your money? Those are your goals. And if you really look and see, wow, I don't realize I'm spending that much time, and I'm not really going to ask you for those things. Don't worry about it. But you need to look at that. Where am I spending my time? Where am I spending my money? And is that what's really important to me, right? It might be, it might be, but that's the kind of things we have to take into account when building a financial plan. So what is a financial plan? A financial plan is the umbrella, the overarching thing for your spending, saving, investing, ensuring your lifetime income, and maybe even leaving a legacy. What's going to happen to your assets when you're gone? Another way to look at financial planning is like a house. And this is my favorite way. Rather than looking at it as an umbrella over all these dollar symbols, it's like a house. It's got to be built on a solid foundation. Every house has a foundation. Whether it's slab or raised, or on stilts, you have a foundation. That foundation relies on your budget. Everybody needs to have a budget, which means really living within your means. Don't spend more than you bring home, right? Sounds obvious, but it trips up so many of us, especially in the Bay Area. California in general, the Bay Area specifically, it's expensive here. It's very expensive here. But you got to live within your budget, live within your means. Reduce and or eliminate debt. Again, difficult to do in California with homes. What's the median home price now? 900,000, something like that. My older son lives down in Sherman Oaks in the LA area. So happy. They've been trying to buy a house since last fall, probably. Outbid, 20, 30 offers, bidding up, getting really discouraged. A couple weeks ago, they got an offer accepted. They're going to move in I think 4th of July weekend, so this is just happening now. So happy. They're so excited. A 1,500 square foot house, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. It's in a nice neighborhood, the working class neighborhood. Over $1.2 million. Can you believe it? So we need to take that into account. We need to take into the real world, what's going on. Brings me to kind of the concept of good and bad debt. Is a mortgage good or bad debt? Well, that depends. Lately, and in California, that can be a significant asset. Whoever sold that house for 1.2 probably bought it years ago for, 300,000. I don't know. It can be an asset. Assets can go up, but they can also go down. Good debt can be maybe a student loan, which is getting a lot of negative, press these days, but if it's done right, it's balanced with what your earnings potential might be with that degree that you're studying. Like a doctor, a lawyer, not too worried about their student debt, right? Because it's going to be leveraged into putting themselves in a great place. Maybe a car can be good debt if it leverages you into that position where you can get to that better job or get to a job, right? Bad debt is if it's a Mercedes, versus a used Toyota, right? Bad debt is I can't afford, I don't have the cash, but I really want that big screen TV. Here's my credit card. I'll go into debt to get the big screen TV. Bad debt, okay? Good debt can leverage you into a better position if it's done responsibly. Bad debt, avoid. Get out of bad debt. In keeping with this house analogy, a house has a floor plan. Like my son's in Sherman Oaks, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. Maybe you need 4 bedrooms. The first house my wife and I bought, we had kids, young, 2 little boys. It was important to her that the kitchen had a window that looked out onto the backyard so she could watch the boys, make sure they're, not choking the dog or, whatever. For the younger one, it was peeing on the roses. Right? But that's a uniqueness, to our situation. Somebody else, it's different. Does the home have to have an office? Do you want a basement? Do you want a big yard? Do you want a little yard? That's very unique to you. So your financial plan has a foundation. Your financial plan then becomes more unique. What's your floor plan? What's this need to do for you? What's the purpose for your money? Is it for retirement, for college, for estate planning, wealth accumulation for, whatever your other goals are? And then over that, of course, a house has a roof, and that's insurance. We have to take into account insurance. Is it appropriate? Is it enough? Is it too much? There are several kinds of goals you can have for insurance, not just, when you die and, leave it to whoever. There's other purposes that you can use for insurance, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the budget, we recommend a 10-10-80 budget. Live on 80% of what you bring in. Save 10% and give 10% to God. Other parts of the country, and if you Google, budget ratios or percentages, you'll get different numbers, mostly because other parts of the country are cheaper. 75, 25, and hardly any of them will talk about giving back to God. They'll say like 25, 75 for live on 75, save 25, things like that. This is more specific to our situation here in California. It's expensive. But examine your budget. Am I spending 80% of what I bring home, or more, or less? Am I giving 10% to God? Am I giving 10% to myself for retirement? Also, think of your money as being in one of 4 buckets. Every dollar is going to be in one of these buckets. My bucket changer is missing. There's the first bucket is now money. There it is. Thank you. The now money is physically it's your checking account, maybe even the money in your wallet. That's what you're living on. Your income from your job or whatever source goes into the first bucket. Your monthly expenses, things like that, come out of that. Then you have short-term money. That might be a savings account. That's money where you hopefully have your emergency reserve. We recommend everyone have 3 to 6 months of expenses on hand in case of an emergency. A job loss, a family emergency where you need to, pay a $2,000 airplane ticket and fly to Louisiana. I don't know why I said Louisiana. Anywhere, those extra kinds of expenses. The car breaks, new transmission, radiator, what have you. That's short-term money. And you can see some other things there: medical, dental, holidays, vacations. Okay. The third bucket is your long-term money. That's for longer-term goals. Maybe you want to buy a vacation home. Maybe you want to buy a rental. You're going to send a kid to college. You're going to have a wedding that you're going to have to pay for coming up. Okay, that's a longer term. And then the fourth bucket is your retirement or never money. And this is where you're saving for your retirement, saving for that legacy, giving back to the church or missions or whatever your long-term goals might be. So we all have these 4 buckets. Some of our buckets are empty, I know. But think about these things when you're thinking about, well, what are my goals and how am I going to structure my financial resources? Okay? Do I, what's in my bucket 1? What's in my bucket 2? And this afternoon we'll have some handouts where you can actually jot down for yourself, what do I have in these buckets? What's the purpose? Okay. So here's the 4 keys to financial planning. What's the purpose of the money? Why do you have it? When do you need the money? Okay, if you're saving for something, when will you need that? How much do you need? And where do you put it to make it happen? Okay. People will come to me and say, Russ, I've got $20,000. What should I do with it? You're a financial guy. $20,000, that's a lot of money. What should I do with it? Like, well, if it's to buy a car next week, keep it in your sock drawer, right? If it's to save for college in 10 years, that's a different thing. If it's to save for retirement, that's yet another different thing. And we will talk about where to put that money so that it makes more sense to what's it for and when do you need it. I would add here also your personal risk tolerance. Kind of the three things I focus on are what's the purpose of the money, when do you need it, or your time horizon. I can invest this for 5 years, I can invest this for 30 years. Right? Purpose of the money, the time horizon, and your personal risk tolerance. Only half of financial planning is the dollars and cents, the numbers. The other half is your own personal goals and risk tolerance. What's going to keep you awake at night? You get your monthly statement and it's down $1,000. How does that make you feel? Or you've heard and seen about what's going on in the world, and your neighbor just made a lot of money and you missed that opportunity because you didn't take the same risk. Is that going to keep you awake tonight? I work with both kinds. Russ, it really hates me when I feel like I missed out on an opportunity. Or, Russ, I really hate it that the market's down and I'm down 10%. What should we do? That's a conversation we all can have. But keep that in mind. Purpose of the money, time horizon, and your personal risk tolerance. Every dollar has different, or every person has different needs, wants, and goals that use different dollars. Okay, you might have $10,000, but $2,000 is for, paying for groceries this month. $3,000 is for doing something else. $5,000 is for retirement. Every, one account, you can have a retirement account, you can have a savings account, you can have a save for my daughter's wedding account, different things that have different time horizons that you can take different risk in, and therefore invest it differently appropriate to that. One size does not fit all. But it is confusing out there. There's bonds, there's stocks, there's mutual funds, there's annuities. Life insurance, did I mention life insurance? What's a hedge fund? What's a REIT, a real estate investment trust? Right? Lots of stuff out there, right? Bitcoin, anybody heard of Bitcoin? Yeah. It's confusing. It's very confusing out there. This afternoon, we're going to talk again a little bit, and I'm going to go into more depth on what these different things are. Many of you know them, but a lot of you don't, and then maybe you'll hear something new also about just what these things mean. The stock market. Here's the stock market the last 13 years. From the bottom of the 2008 financial crisis, actually the bottom was reached in 2009, up till just the first quarter of this year, because this chart uses quarterly statistics, and the end of June will be the end of the second quarter. So we don't have the second quarter up here. It's come down a little bit more. Last time I looked, we were around 3,900 on the S&P. Okay. So as horrible as the year has been in the market, look where it's come just in the last 13 years. If you have money in the market and you're looking at your recent statement and how much it's gone down this year, you might be thinking, I wish I was never in the market. Why did I let that guy talk me into it? Well, if it was last month or the beginning of this year, you'd have a valid complaint. But if you've been in the market for any length of time, you've done well, right? Don't panic when you hear the news, right? But it's also important to look at this chart and realize my time horizon and the purpose of the money is important. Because look, even on the rise up, there have been some downs, right? That big dip in 2020, that's March when the pandemic first hit and the lockdowns, right? Look at that drop. People panicked, saw their market value go down 30%, bailed out. Oh my gosh. I had people think, Russ, I think this is the precursor to the rapture. And I don't mean to be ridiculing them. Because it might still be, it might have been. I don't know. It's difficult to plan for the rapture in a financial plan, so I kind of avoid that. I had a woman I work with, have been working with for many years, and she's the one that's coming to my mind. She called me up. I think the rapture's coming. All of this war, pestilence, the pandemic. The rapture's right around the corner. What should I do with my finances to make sure when I'm gone, my son will get it? She says, I said, I think you should be thinking about maybe making sure your son doesn't need it. But you can see the dip. So if somebody, at one of the higher points, let's say like, that 2014, 2015, there's sort of a high point and then a dip. Somebody with that little bit of high point, wanted to invest some money that they were going to need 6 months later, would have been a bad move. You don't put it in the market when you just have 6 months, right? Because you don't know what the market's going to do. The market is emotional. The market makes no sense. Don't let any of these, Bloomberg News, CNN, Fox, whatever, just the newspaper. About to get a newspaper anymore? I do, but I live in Twin Falls, Idaho. They just got internet 6 months ago. I'm kidding. It was last year sometime. You're bombarded with fear almost, and they try to put a reason behind it. The market went down on fears the interest rates, this and that, blah blah blah. Okay, well, yeah, that's bad news. And the next day, the market went up today on unemployment numbers. Well, what happened to the bad news yesterday, right? It's up now. The market is emotional, and the market is driven by the very large institutional people, the hedge funds, the pension funds, CalPERS, CalSTRS, here in California, billions of dollars. And they're trying to outguess the other money managers doing this. What are they going to do? What should I do? It's very emotional. It's up and down. They're trying to guess what's going to happen, and nobody has a crystal ball. So again, long-term purpose of the money, time horizon. Don't get caught up in the volatility. Right? What's driving the current volatility? Inflation, right? What's causing the inflation? Inflation is whenever demand exceeds supply. Or another way to look at it is when there's too much money, too many dollars, chasing too few goods. Okay? What's causing that? A lot of things, right? I'm not political, don't want to get into the political things, but was it Putin? Is it Biden? Is it spending? Did Trump start it? Did Biden? I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's a little bit of everything and a lot of things we don't even know about, right? Trucking shortage, backlog at the ports, government spending, the war in Ukraine. Yes, it's all part of it. Don't let anybody tell you it's any one thing. It's not. But it is all coming together to cause inflation. So what do we do to bring inflation down? We raise interest rates. Higher interest rates slows down the economy. If interest rates get high enough, people will stop buying new cars, stop buying refrigerators and dishwashers. I say because 2 years ago when I moved to Idaho from Livermore, the only refrigerator we could get for the house was the floor model. Hey, take this one or you wait 6 months. Okay, that over and over and over again in the country raises prices. Right? The demand exceeds the supply for a variety of reasons. They raise the interest rates to slow the economy, but that risks a recession. And a recession is when people lose their jobs. So we don't want that. Okay? Will a recession come? Yes. When? I don't know. Next year? Year after? 10 years from now? I don't know. But recessions are a fact of life. So again, does your financial plan align, number one, with your goals and spiritual values? Number two, is it looking long term? Can you weather something like a recession? We got to build that into the plan. And then, of course, Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, China. We are so reliant on China for so many things. What's that situation? What's that relationship going to be like? There's a lot of risk factors. So is there any good news? Yeah. Consumer spending and business investment is still up, right? Unemployment, there are 2 job openings for every unemployed person in this country. Those are outstanding items of note for the economy. That points to very good things, right? Does that mean things can't turn around? No. It means that my personal opinion, I don't think there's a recession on the horizon, and by horizon I mean the rest of this year or next. But one will come, because they always do. There's always a recession. We have a business cycle. The market goes up, it corrects. The market goes up, it corrects. We are looking at some things that, might point to a recession sooner rather than later, but we just don't know. You've got to plan ahead so that that doesn't bother you. So what's the next steps? Don't panic. Let's meet, you and I. Let's sit down and talk about these things. No charge. If it's right after the service, I'll give you a piece of pizza. Set a confidential meeting. There's a few here, and I know it's been a number of years, but just a show of hands, anybody that has ever sat down with me before, and I know there's some out of the room over here. Yeah, thank you. It's painless, I hope you'll say. I should think ahead before I ask somebody, oh yeah, he's a bum. But the point I wanted to make is it's confidential. Pastor Kelly will never hear anything about what you and I discuss. I'll tell you a lot about what he and I discuss, but no. Everything is confidential. We don't even share information among ourselves within Asset Planning Ministries. The other guys meeting with people, I don't see their notes. I don't talk about. We might talk about some things. When you run into an unusual situation, the other guy might, hey, Russ, what kind of securities or mutual funds are you talking about that correct this kind of problem? I have a client that has this problem. What would you do in that case? Or I might ask him, because he's kind of more of an annuities guy. Hey, what's new in the annuity world? I have somebody that has this situation. So we'll talk general, but nobody within this church and even outside has access to any of your personal information. We take security extremely seriously. After you and I meet, I'll keep notes that I'll need to refer to if we go on. If you say, Russ, it was great meeting with you. Thank you for your advice. I'm just going to go do it. Then, you call me back up. You're going to have to reintroduce yourself, because I'm not going to keep those notes. Okay. So set a meeting. Let's talk. Here's what to expect at your meeting. Here, what we're going to do. We're going to answer your personal questions. We're going to discuss and analyze your financial needs and wants. Again, those goals, objectives, your values, things. What does this financial plan need to do for you? We'll talk about various options that might be available. I'll provide a second opinion. Maybe you've talked to some other people. Russ, this guy said that, or this woman said this. What do you think? Yeah, let's talk about that. We can discuss restructuring your finances or giving them structure if you don't have one. And we can plan additional meetings as needed. We're doing a lot via Zoom these days. Tremendous amount via Zoom, but phone calls, emails, everything. So, thank you very much. We're going to have pizza, and then I'm going to come back. If I encourage you to attend another brief session we'll have with or after the pizza. I'm not sure how that'll work out, but we'll get a little specific on just kinds of financial products that are out there and define some things. So thank you very much.
Give this guy a round of applause.